Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, who are the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creator spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, who have never ceded sovereignty and retain their strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to the elders past, present and future. In attendance tonight, I have Councillor Glenatsis, Councillor Crossland, myself, Councillor Nguyen, Councillor Landis, Councillor Wade and Councillor Stone. I have apologies from Councillor Jolly, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Mohammed. I have no announcements, so I will go to the declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors and staff, do we have any? Councillor Glenatsis.
Thank you. I've just got a general conflict of interest in relation to 7.2, the 30 km/h speed limit trial. I own and operate a mechanical repair business in the area affected by the trial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So you'll step out when we get to that item.
Certainly.
Thank you. Any more conflicts? Okay. Let's move on to confirmations of minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover for the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Crossland and Councillor Stone. Let's go to a vote. All those in favour? That carries. Thank you, councillors. We will now go to question time. I will invite everybody who has registered to ask a question at this meeting in order of registration. When your turn comes, please come forward to the mic, switch it on and state your name for the record. If you're here on behalf of a group, please explain the nature of the group and how you are able to speak on their behalf. We then ask that you direct your question to me and ask the question that you have registered. You will have 3 minutes to ask your question. The first person I have registered is Torek Tawik. Thank you.
Can you hear me? We took over the lease at 424 to 428 Brunswick Street, Fitzroy. There was an old IGA store there that had been closed for about 6 months. It had a reputation of being dark, dingy, selling outdated food and infested with rats. So we spent about 3 to 4 months to rejuvenate the store. We spent a small fortune on the store and we felt we've had very little support from council in that process. We've had delays and fines from council. We're having problems with store theft from criminals. There's a lot of, unfortunately, drug-affected people and homelessness in the area. So I've got a few questions of council tonight. What's council doing to support businesses at the Alexandra end of Brunswick Street? And it's specifically to increase foot traffic, to make it a more desirable destination, and to remove metered parking to give people an incentive to come and shop down that end of Brunswick Street. That's my first question.
Toik, I think it's best if you put all your questions together. Okay. We also have what you have submitted to us, so...
Sure. I'll keep going?
Yep.
Okay. Secondly, we were told that we needed to apply for a planning permit to extend the red line plan. The red line plan permits you to sell liquor in a particular area. The red line plan for the store was issued in December 2006, before there was a requirement for a planning permit to actually before there was a requirement to have a planning permit to have a red line plan.
Torek, sorry, I've just realised that as per the governance rules, your question has to be the one that you've submitted. I think the one that you've asked originally is slightly different to what we have.
I had a couple of questions.
That's fine, but we can only answer the question that you've given us.
Okay.
So if you want to read the question that you have submitted, we can provide an answer to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll have to pull it up. Okay, so the second question is supportive of council regarding requiring a planning permit for a small extension of a red light plan, refusing to consider withdrawing an infringement notice 9999 21914, and we have not heard back regarding outside tables. So they were the questions. So let's just give a bit of background to those questions. So if I may, can I continue?
You can provide further background if that's helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we were told that we needed a planning permit for a red line plan, even though we had a red line issued before there was a requirement for a red line plan. The cost of that application was $1,415. Obviously, you know, any support that we could get from council would be appreciated. I wasn't given a satisfactory response as to why I do need a planning permit, given that the current red line plan was issued before the requirement came in force, which I think was April 2008. So I never received a satisfactory response. I did get a response yesterday saying that you don't need to advertise, but we won't be able to issue the planning permit for another month. Obviously that doesn't help us because we're trying to protect our store and theft, and we're trying to put the high value items behind the counter. And so it causes a bit of difficulty in the store with the process and the delay it's taken. So there's a couple of things there. Why do I need a planning permit for a red light plan that was issued before 2008? And if I do, why is it taking so long?
Thank you. I will see if we can get a response to you from Mary Osman. Thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Torek, for your question. There's a couple of responses that I need to make. First of all, regarding what action Council is taking to engage with businesses along this section of Brunswick Street, I can let you know that Council's Economic Development team are actually working with this section of Brunswick Street to identify a project, campaign or event that will help the local area, and one of my team will be more than happy to contact you to discuss your ideas with how we can achieve that. With respect to the planning permit application, we received an application at the end of September, and the information that was required for that application was submitted to Council at the end of October. I understand the team have responded to you that a planning permit or a decision on that application will be made within due course. With respect to the infringement that was issued to your premises for blocking the footpath by a scissor lift, the team have reviewed that and the fine will stand, and should you wish to pursue the matter, the team are more than happy to walk you through that process. With respect to one last aspect of the question, which was for a tables and chairs application outside on the footpath, that application is currently being assessed and the team will notify you shortly of that outcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Osman. Thank you, Torek.
Thank you.
The next person I have here is Elise King. If Elise, thank you.
Hello, I'd just like to ask a question about the slow point upgrades along Miller Street, Fitzroy North. The full-length speed humps proposed using the code YSD 702 are inadequate to slow down traffic. Why can't this plan include taller, full-width speed humps like used on other streets in Fitzroy North that also have buses? Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. I will ask Mr Sam Hewitt for a response.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Elise, for your question. We call them flat-top road humps, and they're recognised as an appropriate traffic management treatment in the Australian standards to assist in calming traffic speeds. We don't think that they're inadequate, we think they're fine. Miller Street accommodates buses, as you've pointed out, and therefore we think that these are required to be designed so that we can accommodate the buses. The Department of Transport and Planning have also been consulted and have recommended these. As part of the design, we're proposing to narrow the slow points, which will further assist in calming traffic speeds in Miller Street. In addition, we're planning to update Miller Street residents on the design, as we promised before Christmas, but we hope to get that to you in the next couple of weeks. Thank you, Mayor.
Only if you need some clarification to that answer.
Through you, Mayor, I can't respond to why other streets have other design treatments. What we're doing is we're responding to the needs of bus movements and the requirements of DPT, the Department of Transport and Planning. So we think this is an adequate response. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. The next person I have down is Mark Nami. If Mark isn't here, I will move on to the next part of the meeting, which is Council Business Reports. So I will invite everybody who has registered to address the Council in order of registration. When your time comes, please come to the mic, switch it on and state your name for the record. Again, if you're speaking on behalf of a group, please explain the nature of that group and how you are able to speak on their behalf. I then ask that you direct your statement to me and confine your submission to the subject under consideration. The first item tonight is 7.1, Annual Grants 2024 Recommendations, and I have a submitter in Michael Spencer.
I just made it. Thanks, Mayor. My name is Michael Spencer and I'm the Chair of the Fitzroy Residents Association. I don't wish to reflect on any particular grant. I'm sure all applicants are worthy and the panels did their best. What I'd like to make some general observations about perhaps relate more to the report that was commissioned earlier this year and which is ongoing, of some observations from the grants. The first issue is transparency. We see no reason why the panels reviewing the grants and the assessment criteria applied should not be public. We note that the report on the panels is listed as confidential. We'd like to see greater transparency in the process. Outcomes. We'd like to see a stronger focus on outcomes and impacts. Conventional wisdom is to think of public sector investment in terms of inputs, outputs and outcomes. This expenditure is an investment by Council on behalf of ratepayers to achieve certain outcomes. We feel these outcomes need to be clear in the assessment of new applications and in the assessment of groups that have participated previously. In other words, have they achieved the outcomes? What will the program achieve for our Yarra community? And what outcomes has this group delivered in the past? Assessment criteria. There needs to be a transparent assessment matrix that's applied to rank applications. We saw too many vague review comments such as X was a well-written submission. That shouldn't be a major factor. Diversity. There are a few groups with obviously strong grant writing capability that appear in several successful grants. While not questioning the merit of those applicants, we'd like to see a mechanism to engage a wider set of groups. Some funding organisations, for example, use a tiered approach where groups that haven't participated in the past may access perhaps smaller grants, experimental or exploratory grants with a less onerous application process, whereas more experienced groups can access larger grants but may need to demonstrate much higher levels of performance. Local groups first. We understand that a number of good programs are operated by groups with a broader remit than Yarra, but we feel that where groups from outside Yarra are receiving funds from Yarra ratepayers, there needs to be a demonstration of a very strong local linkage that's more than just that the event will be staged in Yarra. Large organisations, similarly with large entities, and I said I wouldn't mention particular applicants, but I will mention ACU, there needs to be a clear argument why that's not an activity they should be funding as part of their commitment to the Yarra community. Particularly in that case, they don't even pay rates. And finally, gap analysis. We note that officers engaged in community consultation to promote the program. A suggestion would be that in advance of the program being advertised next year, Council agree on gaps in current activity programs that should be targeted. Officers could then seek out appropriate groups to encourage them to apply. For example, while there are several sports programs on public housing estates, we know that not all young people see sport as something that motivates them. Maybe we need to focus on broadening the range of activities to things like music, dance and other activities. So they're just a few suggestions for consideration in the review. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for your suggestions and submission. Councillors, do we have any questions for Michael and Malcolm? Councillor Stone.
Just on the review of the grants that's underway, will officers be proactively approaching groups like Fitzroy Residents Association to seek their input?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the answer is 100%. So it's very timely that this feedback is provided to us. We went and had the adopted terms of reference have been published for the project and they're available, or we'll share them. We are planning an extensive engagement campaign, and I'm really looking forward to hearing that feedback and integrating it with all the other feedback we're going to get. I think there were some really interesting points in there.
Councillors, can I have a way forward? Councillor Stone, you'll move. Councillor Wade, you'll second. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to this?
Gosh, I feel like a broken record speaking to the annual grants every year because they are just so positive. It's one of the best ways we can invest in our community. Yarra has, for a long time, had one of the biggest community grants programs in the state, and we're very proud of that. And we, despite what Michael Spencer has said, we do measure the impact from year to year. It may not be as visible as it needs to be, but it makes enormous impact. Is it $4 return for every dollar that's invested? $7? Something like that. It's a lot of money. And it helps things happen that wouldn't otherwise happen, that are of enormous benefit across the arts, across music, across sport, across the environment, community development, education, housing, all sorts of things. So I'm really proud of this program. I'm looking forward to the review that we're undertaking to see if we can get more out of it. And I thank the officers and all of the community volunteers who are chosen from the community, who have particular expertise, who spent quite a bit of time on these panels, working through all of them, thinking about them and making the right choices. Very difficult choices. And I see that we're going to have another round of arts grants in November because it was so heavily subscribed and there's obviously such a need in the arts community. So thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Wade.
Echoing everything Councillor Stone said, impressive people that we have in the Yarra community, and thank you very much to staff for going through what I'm sure is a very difficult job in looking through those applications, and to the community members who are involved in those panels as well. I agree that I think we can look into many of the things Mr Spencer just said, and perhaps even sending through a written copy of that submission could feed straight into that process too. I note in particular the point on diversity of applicants and making sure that we've got people from a wide variety of backgrounds and who may or may not have engaged with a process like this before, and just thought I'd note that we do have those seminars for people on grant writing, etc., because I think, you know, while that doesn't solve every problem, it does go some way to recognising that some people are going to be better at this than others, and making sure that we skill people up, because those sorts of skills will be useful outside of Yarra as well. Lots of organisations won't be applying to grants just to us. Even our hyper-local organisations hopefully will be applying for grants from various state bodies as well. So congratulations to the team. Thank you for the feedback, and I'm looking forward to the grant review as well. I think improvements yet to be made, but very positive things to celebrate tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Any other speakers? All right, officer's recommendation. Let's go to a vote. All those in favour? Carries unanimously. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Michael and Malcolm. Our next item is 7.2. Thank you. Councillor Glenatsis has declared a conflict and will now leave the room. The item is pre-trial study for 30 kilometres per hour speed limit trial. We don't have any submitters, so councillors, do we have any questions for Danny? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Peppered throughout the report and in the recommendation are references to subject to securing external funding, and I'm assuming officers are reasonably confident that that is possible. It's a rhetorical question, I guess. The question is, what happens if external funding is not secured? Is it possible for council to proceed with this anyway?
Thank you for the question. We are very confident of the funding. We've been advised that it is there, and we've been working for a couple of months to secure the funding, or many, many months to secure the funding. So we've not really considered any situation outside of that at this stage. I think that'll be a decision that we may have to bring back at a later stage if funding is not available, to see how it is. I think the state government is keen that this is, this trial is used to assess its speed zoning guidelines and its position on future 30 kilometre hour trials. So I think that's where the funding is coming from.
Any other questions? Okay, councillors, we've got the officer's recommendation. Would someone like to move it? Councillor Stone will move it and Councillor Wade will second it. Councillor Stone, please, if you'd like to speak to it.
Thank you. It's quite frustrating that we have to continue to run trials for something that's been proven to reduce the likelihood of a vulnerable road user dying or having a serious injury if they come in to contact with a moving vehicle, but this is what we have to do. It's happened all around the world in particularly built-up areas. The sky hasn't fallen in, but we will go down this track. I think the most startling and shocking statistic in this report was the one in paragraph 49, which showed that in the past 5 years, 75% of crashes in Fitzroy and Collingwood local streets and were involved vulnerable road users, pedestrians or bikes, and on the main streets it was 84%. That is an appallingly high statistic, and particularly vulnerable road users are far more likely to die or have very serious injury if they collide with a car. And we know 30 kilometres per hour, they are not likely to. They're much more likely to survive. So this is really about safety of our community. There should be no hesitation going down this path, and I really commend the officers for the fastidious work they've put into preparing the case and making it possible for us to be able to trial something that just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Wade.
Again, echoing everything Councillor Stone said, and I think that was put really, really well. We're still trialling things that we know work. We know that from here, and we know that from overseas. I thought this was a really good report. Really clearly laid out the case for 30 Ks and why it's particularly needed in this area. I thought I'd just start by mentioning, I think it was, is it 6 schools in this precinct? It was 5 or 6 schools. That means a lot of kids, a lot of schools, a lot of vulnerable little children walking around these streets, and they're exactly the sorts of people we're trying to protect. And I think sometimes people think of Fitzroy and Collingwood as these areas that are just filled with, young professionals, and that is absolutely not the case. Like, that is a lot of children right there, right in the middle of Fitzroy and Collingwood. I wanted to draw out some of the statistics in this report just because I thought they were compelling, and Councillor Stone's already drawn us to one. One is that in the 40k speed areas of Fitzroy and Collingwood, so that's where we're extending this trial to, including the tram streets, over the past 5 years there have been 193 crashes, 80% of which involve vulnerable road users, so that's people walking or cycling. 80% of 193. I also think an extremely compelling statistic is the one around survival rates, which I have lost, which I believe is that if it's 40 Ks, you have a 60% chance of dying, and if it's 30 Ks, you only have a 10% chance of dying. That is like a huge change, right? From 60% chance of death to 10% chance of death, like for people travelling a little bit slower. And that's where another figure from this report I think is very useful, which is that the average speed that people are travelling on these streets is only 34 kilometres per hour anyway. So people are only going to be travelling on average 4 k's an hour less. That's not a very big dint in your day, and it raises people's likelihood of survival by 50%, or sorry, by 6 times. So yeah, maths, fun. Also, fun statistics, 68% support of the people who are currently living in the 30k zone. That is massive. And of the people who live in the area that we're planning to extend that to, 59% support. So that's people who live right next to a 30k zone, can see it in action and say, hey, I want that for my street. That's pretty much unheard of for people to support something that's not the status quo in such incredible numbers. There's more stats in here. I would recommend everybody have a read if you like numbers and if you like people being able to get around safely, because this is just such a great way to do it, and it's so good to see so many state government bodies coming out in support too, like VicPol, Department of Transport, Department of Health are all making noises about moving to 30Ks. So I'm so proud that Yarra's been able to lead that, and I hope we continue to lead that tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Any other speakers? All right, let's go to a vote. Or Councillor Crossland?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say, I think this is a really exciting opportunity that's in front of us. We've heard from community members time and time again how they're wanting to have safer streets. They're wanting to be able to have their children walk to school on their own or with them as well. But just to feel safe that they can do that in their local network of streets. We have so many narrow streets where simply travelling at this speed limit that it currently is not safe. I'm not sure how you could even achieve it in many of them. And this is bringing it into alignment with community expectations. I think that's really exciting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let's go to a vote. All those in favour? Carries unanimously. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Danny. Next, we have 7.3, which is the Gertrude Brunswick Public Space Project. And I have Michael Spencer, who has registered. Thank you, Michael.
Sorry for doing two. Thanks.
Sorry, Michael, if you can just give us 2 seconds and we'll grab our councillor.
Hope you don't hurt them.
I think the sound is a bit patchy on the live stream. It's dropping in and out on the live stream. Can we have a look at the sound, please, team? Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Fitzroy Residents Association, we're delighted to see the Brunswick Street Streetscape Master Plan moving forward. As the officer's report notes, it was adopted by Council in 2020, but very little has happened until recently. FRA had identified the plan as a priority for our community. As well as the proposal being presented tonight, we note that street trees have recently been placed in Brunswick Street, and so it's great to see a start being made. The Brunswick Street, Gertrude Street site has the potential to become an important feature in this neighbourhood, particularly if linked to other proposals such as the greening of Gertrude Street, by being proposed by people of Gertrude Street, proposals for accessible tram stops and for an Indigenous walk of honour along Gertrude Street, which we've proposed. It has the potential to better integrate the public open space of the Atherton Gardens with the broader Fitzroy community, which we see as important and was identified from some research we did as being important. This is a very public, this area has become an area where people, this will become a very important public area where people will congregate, and so therefore it requires consideration of social issues as well as design and landscape issues. Given the prospect of longer, hotter summers as well as more extreme events, we feel the design may need to give greater consideration to shade and cooling than appears to be the case in the current drawing, and we'll certainly be making a submission along those lines. It may even be things like water misting could be something considered. More broadly, though, we'd like to see active participation of the community in all elements of this project. So in the design, in the construction and in the use of the proposal. Long-term success will depend on very active engagement with the community rather than simply creating a passive site. For example, this project can create a better link to upgraded children's play equipment in Atherton Gardens, for instance, which is really not used at the moment, to make it attractive for families and children. There may need to be consideration of a safety fence along the major streets, as well as accessibility and lighting. Can we make this a hub for other activities? So, for example, a sound shell for buskers and musicians, public transport information, community notice board, tourist information, and information for homeless people needing emergency accommodation, shelters, food and safe lockers. Can it become a speaker's corner? Can it offer information about birds that may be seen in the area? There's currently a tawny frogmouth in the Atherton Gardens, by the way. There are many ways to actively engage the community, and so I'd encourage a broadening out rather than just a focus on design. How do we really engage the community in using this space? And so we encourage you to explore those areas. A passive site really risks it becoming a bit of a wasteland. In relation to the street trees, quickly, I had a walk up and down Brunswick Street last night. Great to see them there, but unfortunately about half a dozen are already carked it. So we need to look at that. We need to look at the conditions in which they're being planted. The master plan made a number of notes of things that need to be considered in relation to the street trees, so there may be some issues there with shared continuous trenching, use of structural soils, strata cells, whatever they are, and a greater diversity of species. So we'd encourage council to really think deeply about this master plan, to engage the community. The community wants to be engaged. FRA sees it as a priority project. And by the way, we note that the footpath in Brunswick Street south of Moore Street is wider than the footpath north of Moore Street. So I realise that would involve negotiation with another government, but maybe we could standardise the footpath and crib an extra half a metre in that section where I see that there's a bit of a crowding effect of the trees, and we really want to create a bit more pedestrian space along there, so that might provide a rationale for improving the pedestrian space. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Michael, for your suggestions. Councillors, do we have any questions for Susan and Kate? Councillor Stone.
It is a lovely project and I think it will be positively received, but I'm sorry to put a bit of a dampener on part of it, but it does remove quite a bit of vegetation and replaces it with a hard surface. And I think every time we do that, we need to balance up things and make sure nothing is being lost. Mr Spencer has picked up on some of the habitat or biodiversity values of Atherton Gardens, which are significant. It's also significant in terms of connectivity for habitat. And shrubbery, it may attract the dirt and block views, but it's also very, very important habitat for quite a lot of animals, particularly birds. So have those biodiversity values been considered in the design of this from the beginning, and also, as Mr Spencer said, the increased urban heat that hard services will produce.
We're just in the concept phase. We probably do need to measure the change in the level of greenery that's there, and we can do that. I'm not convinced it's reduced that much, but we will have a look at that and check that out. There's definitely a big focus on the biodiversity and making sure that we reflect the First Nations people in the plantings that we're doing, and the consultant that's working on is, and we're working very closely with the Wurundjeri Corporation on this. So as we progress, all of those issues in the detailed design will be covered, but right now it's just a little bit more sort of open for the community to have input into.
And a follow-up, if I may, just in light of our nature strategy and the need to understand what's there, and with replanting, planting for what's there and what's needed, is our biodiversity team being engaged in this project?
Yes, they definitely are. There's a huge group of internal staff as well as external stakeholders that are involved in this project. Yes.
Councillor Wade.
I was just wondering about the funding of this project. So we've got $97,000 allocated to do the design work at this stage, but it's a foreshadowed construction cost of about $600,000. I'm just conscious, I think it's a great project and I'm planning to support it, but I just wanted to check that in the kind of circumstances where we've got a report later on the agenda tonight about cost shifting, and given this has got a substantial amount of state government land on it, and we've heard flagged the playgrounds at Atherton Gardens are also looking a little bit shabby, and we know that that's also on state land, and they're not our playgrounds and they're not looked after by us, and that might be why they're a bit less appealing. Have we got scope to get funding for this project from the state government? Do they have any interest in it, or would it be something funded out of Yarra funds?
We've been having discussions, a lot of discussions with a number of state bodies. DFFH and Homes Victoria at this stage are not committing to anything. We're still in a whole lot of negotiations with Homes Vic due to their new housing strategy and policy. So we're discussing it. They feel that once we can get the minister over the line with the concept design, then there may be an opportunity, but at this stage there's absolutely no commitment.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wade. Councillor Stone will second. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, as much as I'm worried about money, I'm also always very excited about open space. I think this looks really exciting. I'm glad for the inclusion of some big new gums on that corner, which I think will be beautiful. I think it's, for a long time, you know, we've had visibility issues going around that corner. The shrubs, I don't think, are adding a huge amount from a kind of people's enjoyment of the space, though I note the points about biodiversity and making sure they're taken care of. I think there's huge prospects for it to be more activated as a space, whether that's done formally or not, and I'm looking forward to hearing what comes out of the consultation with respect to that. Also thought I'd note that tawny frogmouth in Fitzroy just hangs around, and sometimes you get lucky and you can just stand on Moore Street and just watch it for half an hour, and I did that last week. So what a lovely area we live in.
Councillor Stone. Thank you. Any other speakers? Let's go to a vote. All those in favour? That carries. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Susan and Kate. Next up, we have 7.4, which is the Draft Street Garden Guidelines. Councillors, do we have any questions for Susan? Councillor Wade.
I think I ask this every time the draft street gardens come up, but I understand that we're developing some vertical gardening guidelines as well that will be released around a similar time, but will have stricter limits just given the varied things that vertical gardens cover.
Yes, that's correct, and they won't be subject to community consultation because of the incredible infrastructure issues that we deal with for those vertical gardens.
Any other questions? Councillors, okay. There's an officer's recommendation. Would anyone like to move it? Councillor Stone will move it. Can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Glenatsis. Councillor Stone.
Thank you. This was actually proposed by a resident, but we know that many residents are keen to be able to get their hands on public space and do some gardening, but we also know that there are a number of restrictions that need to be observed and some safety guidelines, and also the right plants in the right places. So I really commend the officers for bringing this to us in a timely way with really a clear, simple process and very clear documentation for residents to use to help their street gardening activities, and look forward to feedback that we might get on this. Simple as that. Thank you.
Councillor Glenatsis, echoing the words of Councillor Stone. Any other speakers? Councillor Crossland.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm really excited about the prospects of this piece of work and having the opportunity for more community members to garden and utilise their nature strips in different ways, and what that brings to our community, and further opportunities for community to engage in different ways, and environmental benefits as well. So awesome stuff.
Thank you. Let's go to a vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation. That carries. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Kate. Next up, we have 7.5, 2023 Advocacy Action Plan. Councillors, do we have any questions for L? Councillor Landis.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to talk about the DDA tram stops if I can. We've heard from residents over numerous years now about the management of the DDA tram stops in Bridge Road and to some degree Victoria Street as well, especially the management and the maintenance and the design of these tram stops, and the sort of difficulties that are being experienced by all stakeholders. And recently, through an FOI, the number of accidents from vulnerable users who around these stops. So I guess in the advocacy piece, do you have any contemplation around how you will approach these sort of discussions with respect to DDA stops?
Yes. So once this is adopted, or if this is adopted by council, I'll be working really closely with the subject matter experts and the teams that engage really closely with the department, and together we'll, I guess, formulate a plan of how to approach these projects together. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Would you, Councillor Wade, you've foreshadowed some words. Would you like to move them, and maybe we can get them up on the screen?
Yes, I have an amended version of the office recommendation, which, yep, this is it. So there's multiple pages to this. So one is adding something under the climate emergency heading, one is amending something under the transport heading, well, 3 amendments under the transport heading, and one is an amendment to a vibrant Yarra. So I can speak to them when I speak, if that's suitable.
That's fine. Councillors? I just need to find a seconder first before we get through to amendments. Councillor Crossland, you will second, and Councillor Landis, you can propose your amendment.
In respect to A Part 2, next to the words to the provision, I'd like to include the word design and management of disability discrimination compliant tram stops and the surrounding area upgrading across our municipality.
Councillor Wade.
Just a comma and then design and management.
Provision, design and
management. Yeah.
That's acceptable to me, but I think we might need to read it out again for governance.
Provision, comma, design and management.
Councillor Wade, do you accept the amendments?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Crossland, do you accept? Okay. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it?
I would. Firstly, thank you to the officer, Ms Sweeney, for this excellent report. I think it's really good to have all of these in one place. We've obviously, sorry, Ms Sweet. We've obviously got a lot of things that Yarra is doing and advocating for at any given time, and it can be a little bit tricky trying to keep track of them. So it's like really just lovely to see them all accumulated in one document and see all the things that we're working on with agencies outside of ourselves. The things that I've suggested adding are just a missing item on electrical line clearance regulations and tree pruning, which came from a recent council meeting. So anybody who wants to know about that can go watch the tree pruning meeting. You can ask me if you need to know which one that is. The transport one, there was just a few roads mentioned that need to have DDA tram stop upgrades, but actually it's almost every road in Yarra. So rather than naming half the roads, I thought we should just say we want them everywhere, because we do want them everywhere. We want people to be able to travel around our city safely. The next one was just to highlight that what we're trying to do in Cremorne is improve the ability for people to walk, wheel, bike and get around by public transport, and that's just foregrounding that. The next is adding the Elizabeth Street bike lanes to things that we would love the state government to fund, and we know they're looking for opportunities in the active transport space, so please come to Yarra, we're happy to have you. And the last one is just to clarify that we are asking the Minister for Housing to commit to releasing the master plan and taking out the word delivering. We'll decide if we want them to deliver it when we get an opportunity to review it in full. I think this is an excellent document. I think they're really great goals. Many we have or will talk about tonight. There's more about 30Ks in there. There's more about social, public and affordable housing. There will be more, as foreshadowed in the report, on that to come as we work through all of the state's recent announcements, and so that one I suspect will be the most heavily amended section in time. Lots of work to be done, and I'm excited to do it, so I commend this motion to my fellow colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Crossland.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Wade summarised everything really well. I think it's really exciting that we've got, as you said, one place where we can look and see many of the different things that we're actively advocating for and trying to achieve for our community. And these have come out of resolutions, different policies and strategies, and seeing it in one place is really, really awesome. And there's so many great initiatives that we're actively trying to work the state government on. And I'm just really excited that we actually start to be able to get some of those delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor Landis.
Yeah, thank you. I might just speak briefly to the changes that I suggested. As I said, we've heard from residents in respect of the tram stops in Bridge Road and Victoria Street, and in particular the management and the maintenance of these stops. The fact that bollards are generally, there's no safety bollards for very extended periods of time. We've seen cars fall off the edge. We've seen people walk off the edge and been hospitalised. We've seen scooters, motor scooters. We've seen people on bikes. We've seen a great variety of different incidents around the tram stops. So I think having the tram stops is one thing, but they need to be managed and appropriately designed so that they're not intrusive and they're not confusing, and that they actually provide a positive experience for all stakeholders, and in particular vulnerable stakeholders. So I'm pleased that that small amendment has been accepted, so thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Let's get to a vote. All of those in favour? That carries. Thank you. Thank you, Elle. The next item is 7.6, which is the Governance Report, November 2023. Do we have Marion Atwater in the crowd? We don't. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I have two. One is on the Councillor Workshop Transparency Policy, and I note and certainly endorse the emphasis on the fact that workshops, which were formerly known as briefings, are not decision-making meetings, and they're not formally constituted and so on, and that the IBAC Commission stated that they should only be used for the presentation of information to councillors and the provision of responses to questions. So I guess I'm questioning the nature of a workshop, changing something from a briefing where information is disseminated and questions are answered, and a workshop where there's a much higher level of engagement. I don't know who I'm directing this to. Mr. Thomas, can you explain how you would see a workshop as remaining still within the purview of simply provision of information?
Certainly, Councillor Stone. I think in some ways the actual semantics are probably not that critical, and they could be called briefings or workshops. But one of the reasons why we made the change, well, two reasons really. One was to mark that we were taking a new approach to the sessions, but probably most critically is the fact that a briefing sort of implies that a decision has been made, a position has been reached, and we are just using the opportunity to tell councillors about it. Whereas a workshop implies that there is a process of thinking and development still underway, and that is the case. And the workshops are used by council officers both to inform councillors of the status of reports and projects, and that's the briefing element, but also to get feedback from councillors, to hear from councillors about their perceptions about how that might affect their constituents, and so that council officers can then go away and form a recommendation for a council meeting. So at the time that the workshop is taking place, the officer has not yet concluded their development of a formal recommendation for a later council meeting. So we're still workshopping it.
Thank you. Reece, do we have any other questions? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. It's on the changes to planning delegations. This is not making that decision. It's already been made, but it is revisited. And I guess in light of that, I had a question, I think, for Ms Osman about the number of planning decisions that are now being made by councillors. This year, at least half of our meetings have been cancelled due to a lack of agenda items. I think we've made 8 decisions, one of which was a compulsory conference. Last year there were 35 decisions made by councillors, and the year before there were 86 decisions by councillors. So I guess I've got 2 questions on that. Is the decline in the number of planning matters being considered by councillors purely due to the change in delegations, or is there another factor present because it's declined over 2 years, not just the one? And the second one was, is there a review planned for the change to delegations? What's working well, what's not? What have been the impacts? Because it's been a major change. It was proposed by officers, and I wondered if officers were going to complete a review of this major change.
Through you, Mayor, the declining number of planning matters being heard by the PDC was highlighted as a result of the change of delegations when the report was presented to councillors last year. There's also an additional matter. There has been a slight decline in the number of planning permit applications that have been launched over the last 12 months. We are seeing a slight increase to that, or a pickup in the number of applications being lodged with council at the moment. So it's twofold. It is partly as a result of the delegation changes, which was clearly articulated in the officer's report at the time, and in the number of applications that are being received by council at the moment. With respect to a change or a review of the deed of delegation or the impacts of that delegation, there's currently a service review that's being undertaken for both the Statutory Planning Department and the Strategic Planning Department, and we'll be looking at all processes within that.
Point of clarification, the number matters that ended up with councillors at a PDC was less than half in 2022 compared to 2021. So that's not the delegations. That's a significant change. Is that just a reflection of the number of planning applications that are coming in, or those that are contested? Can you explain that?
It's a bit of both, councillors, to be honest. The scale of applications have changed. Also, the compliance with the DDOs that have been implemented across the municipality has assisted in that in part. But there's also been the impact of the change of the deed of delegation. So it's a sort of a multiple impacts to why the number of decisions at PDC have reduced. Equally, there have been a number of applications that have been lodged with the Department of Transport and Planning for the fast track process, which has resulted in a different pathway for those applications, and those applications have been presented to the full council rather than the PDC. So there's a number of answers as to why.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Ms Osmond just answered my second question, thank you, but I have another question arising from what you just said, which is that the DDOs and other planning scheme amendments that we currently have with the Minister, once they get passed, does that mean that there might be further compliance later on by developers, thus, reducing the number that are as contested, or do you see developers complying with them now that they're, considered to the point that they're with the Minister?
Through you, Mayor, that's a very difficult question to answer. I think by Council providing a strategic direction with respect to its built form outcomes across the municipality have assisted in those conversations with the development industry. Sites, when a purchaser is looking at a parcel of land, they understand that there are controls that apply to that. So rather than guessing, I suppose, what is an acceptable outcome, there's guidance with it. So it really has had an impact on how applications are lodged with council, but beyond that I can't really provide more of an answer.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, would anyone like to move the officer's recommendation? You have an amendment, Councillor Wade. Can you please propose it?
I'd like to move an amended recommendation, which I believe Governance has, and it's just to add that the quarterly reports presented to Council in future include a quarterly update on the status of planning scheme amendments. My apologies. We were talking about planning scheme amendments, and so my brain thought that it was this. Everyone just remember it for next time.
Yep. Can I have a mover for the officers? Thank you, Councillor Stone. Would you like to insert the name of the audit and risk?
Lisa Tripodi.
Thank you. And can I have a seconder? Councillor Landis. Thank you. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to it?
Just to thank the officer who's disappeared, and for the fastidious report, and for tolerating my questions. And congratulate the new independent audit and risk committee member, Lisa Tripodi, assuming this gets passed.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Landis.
Yes, concur.
Okay.
Any other speakers? We'll go to Councillor Wade.
Just briefly, I just wanted to say, that I thought there's some really good changes in this to the conflict of interest declarations, workshop transparency policy. I think we've had a lot of requests from the community for more transparency, and this goes a long way to doing that. Also, just to note that the two items we put up to the MAV in October passed, so that was in relation to the proposed planning reforms, and also in relation to alternative approval pathways for pedestrian works, which basically means trying to avoid DOT delays. So lots of positive stuff in here, and it feels like we're moving in a good direction.
Thank you, councillors. Let's get all vote. All those in favour? That carries. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Reece. The next item...
Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah?
I believe as of that one you're meant to start, now that that's been made, so maybe not for that one, you're meant to start calling for a division every time.
When does it come into effect?
Now, from the next one.
The next council meeting? All right.
Or is it next
December.
meeting?
December. Is it immediate? Can someone clarify?
Paragraph 30.
With this item, the next item. Gotcha. Okay. The next item is 7.7, which is the quarterly report, quarter 1, 23-24. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Landis.
Thank you. Yeah, to the officers in reference to the financial statements, and thank you very much. I just wanted to get some clarification, if I could, in terms of the movements in respect of the capital expenditure and the movements in reference to the capital grants. If you could just explain that, those movements in terms of the annual variances with the annual forecast figures.
Yes, through you, Mayor. I assume you are referring to the movement of the Capital Works program between budget and the forecast. So the mostly because of the remove of a couple of large projects. That's why the Capital Works program forecast is reduced from 34 million in the budget to 28.5 million in the forecast. And the couple of large projects are Brunswick Street Oval and also Collingwood College Early Childhood Centre. They are also reflected in the reduction of the capital grants in our forecast for the income and expense.
Thank you. Could you just provide some sort of narrative around the user fees and the sort of $1.9 million sort of variance there, the negative variance with the annual forecast?
Yes, through you, Mayor. The adjustment in the forecast for our user fees is mainly because of the forecast closure of Burnley Golf Course and also the children's services in parents' fees and grants due to lower utilisation.
And I suppose if you'd just like to clarify the unrestricted number in the unrestricted cash position.
Yes, sure, through you, Mayor. There was an human error in the unrestricted cash chart. So our unrestricted cash balance is at the end of quarter 1 is 14 million instead of 30 million, which was a human error in the copy pasting. The unrestricted cash balance as at this point of time of the year generally is not a good indicator of our year-end position, mainly because the timing difference between us receiving the income, such as rates, and our expenditure in Capital Works program, which normally happens a bit more towards the second half of the financial year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Stone.
Yes, just thank you. This is a terribly comprehensive report, and it'll be of great interest to many of our citizens, I know. The reporting in this form on each of our strategies or key strategies is actually seems to be a bit I guess who do I direct this to? Probably CEO. Yeah. Self-selected highlights for each strategy rather than accounting against all the actions and the key priorities that each strategy produces. So I guess my question is where and when can the community see how the strategies themselves are being delivered against, given they have input into them? These are great highlights, but they're not an accounting kind of process.
Thanks for the question. I think I'll take it as feedback, to be honest. What the intention is, these are new inclusions, as you know, and the intention is that every quarter we create a rolling program of updates on key strategies. And so, just by way of background, it wouldn't necessarily be that we would have the access and inclusion strategy, for example, in the second quarter report. Different strategies require different reporting mechanisms. But I take the feedback. The intention is for it to be a one-stop report card. So we'll, rather than answer the question about where people might look, what we will do is seek to improve the way in which we provide that reporting in the next version on on the other strategies in the second quarter report.
Or perhaps at least consider it.
Yeah, thanks.
A couple of other questions. In terms of, I suppose, improving transparency, I was wondering if the CEO could explain some of the features in this report that have added to improving transparency.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Landers. We have been working really hard to create a quarterly report that is more than just the basic requirements of the Act. Partly for transparency purposes, I think the inclusions that you see for the first time this quarter do have the benefit of transparency, but also another intention was to highlight some of the amazing things that Council does that don't necessarily get a platform. They don't need to come through Council for decisions. There's extraordinary work that happens every day in this city and doesn't necessarily get seen. So we wanted to provide a platform for that to showcase the work that Council does. What we've done, what the new inclusions for this quarter include a summary of the community engagement activities for the last quarter, which I think demonstrates Council's really strong commitment to trying to do everything it can to be out and about and hear from its community, and that responds very strongly to the feedback that we've received. The strategy updates that Councillor Stone referenced, and then we've also included quarterly statutory planning activity data, so timeframes, number of applications, those kinds of things for the last quarter, and also parking activity data. There's quite a bit more to come. It's one of those, this is a report that the organisation is pretty committed to trying to improve every time you see it. So we're looking to put recreation and leisure metrics and VCAT data in the next quarter's report. And hopefully you find it useful and the community value it.
On that basis, which is a great report, do the officers have intention to sort of hard copy this and maybe put it in libraries and the counters, reception counters?
I hesitate to say yes to the idea of hard copy anything, frankly, Councillor, but I will turn my mind to making sure that it's accessible to the community and see what I can do.
Any other questions, councillors? All right, would anyone like to move the officer's report? Councillor Wade, you have foreshadowed motion.
Amended motion, just to add one thing, as mentioned previously.
All right, let's get it up. Okay, Councillor Wade moves, Councillor Landis seconds. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it?
There's a reason I got these two confused. I think they're both steps in a good direction of more transparency and making things clearer for the public, though I note the comments of my colleagues tonight, and I support those in terms of however we can make this information more user-friendly for people. I would support that. The addition is to add quarterly updates on the status of planning scheme amendments. I know there are many of us in the room, councillors and community members, and of course our officers, who are diligently tracking the no progress on about 7 different planning scheme amendments. And so even if every 3 months it just says no progress, or if it says so-and-so had a meeting with so-and-so, I think it would be useful for people to be able to see that we are trying and that we're bashing our heads against a wall, and I think it just is useful to keep seeing it even if the answer is no change. So that's why I've added this, and I commend this report to my colleagues.
Councillor Landis?
Yeah, the word I've got is wow. Congratulations to officers. It's really fantastic. I reckon it's a new standard of improving transparency and providing constituents with a a full range of information, including but not limited to financial, quarterly financials, strategy updates, capital works programs, community engagement activities, annual plan performance, and a broad range of statistics, including parking revenue, planning permits processed, and with lots more to come. As I said before, I was hoping that officers will work to make this document available across the community to allow residents to access and to resource the document. The features in the financial position include a surplus for the year that it's running $9 million more than the same period last year, and that's to be encouraged. Employment costs have marginally increased whilst materials and services were down. Council's unrestricted cash position was significantly improved at $14.7 million, and we see our legacy borrowings have been reduced to $30.5 million compared to $34.9 million last year. It should be noted, however, that the capital expenditure program is now being reduced to $28 million from the 34 as reflected in the answers by officers before, and the expected surplus has also been reduced to $9.4 million with the anticipation from the $15 million as a result of the deferment of the capital works. So with that in mind, I commend this excellent piece of work and thank you to officers again.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any other speakers? I will go to a vote and I will call a division. Please keep your hands up. All those in favour. Councillor Stone, Wade, Landis, Nguyen, Crossland and Glenatsis. Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chen. Thank you, Shane. The next item is 7.8, cost shifting, work on the other agency's land. We have here with us Brett and councillors. Do we have any questions? Councillor Wade.
Just looking at the numbers again, I was just, we're currently reimbursed $87,938 for things that we think are costing us over $1 million. Is that correct?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Yes, that is correct.
And that's for maintenance, etc., cleaning that we're carrying out on state land?
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions, councillors? Does anyone like to move the item? I'm going to see if anyone over here wants to have a go. All right, Councillor Wade, it's you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Crossland. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, I just think those figures say it all, right? Like, the state's paying less than 10% of what it costs to clean and maintain those areas, those roads and footpaths, etc. That's just bonkers, right? Like, I find it actually hard to wrap my head around. I've had emails today from somebody in Cremorne flagging some other spots that they don't think are particularly well cleaned right on the river. I'm 90% sure that it's state land. I'm waiting on confirmation, but I've just seen so many times where our officers have stepped in, where the state's not doing its job. Like, we'll have a complaint from the community, we'll pass it on and we'll say, hey, there's an issue here. And our officers will say, oh, look, we know the state's not going to get to that, and so we'll just do it. And I really respect that, and I really appreciate that we've got a team here at Yarra that will make sure that places are clean and safe. But we can't do that in all circumstances, and it's unreasonable to expect us to keep paying almost $1 million a year in maintaining these things. So I wish officers luck in advocating to the state government, because I just don't think it's fair or sustainable.
Councillor Crossland.
Thank you. Further to what Councillor Wade just said, the amount of money is staggering. And to me, that's the key take home here. It's just like, that's a huge amount of money that we could be putting towards different services, delivery of different things, and we're currently not able to because we're having to pick up the pieces on behalf of the state government. And I really likewise do wish the organisation well in those engagements and trying to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do we have any other speakers? I will put it to a vote and call for a division. All those in favour? Councillor Stone, Wade, Landis, Newen, Crossland, Glenatsis. Thank you, councillors. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Brett. The next item is 7.9. Brian and May proposed redevelopment 560 Church Street, Cremorne. Welcome, Julian and Catherine. Thank you. I have one submitter in Contour Consultants, Vaughan Connor.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Vaughan Connor and I'm here for the Alfarsi Group and I'm a Director at Contour, as I said. So thank you for the opportunity to make this submission, and I've also earlier today circulated a project animation for Councillors' viewing. On any measure, this is a significant project for Cremorne and the City of Yarra. It represents a circa $500 million development investment, and the elements and public benefits that comprise the project include various restoration and conservation works to state-registered heritage fabric, a total office floor area of approximately 25,000 square metres, a 200-room hotel, and there is an agreement in place with an international hotel brand currently not represented in Australia. There is a range of hospitality and retail venues to activate the ground plane. 32% of the site is dedicated to publicly accessible new public realm. The project includes a reimagining of Adelaide Street consistent with Council's UDF for Cremorne. And it also creates a pedestrian-focused east-west connection between Church Street and Chestnut Street along the alignment of Russell Street. We note that there's been engagement with First Nations elders, and this engagement will continue through a site-wide urban arts strategy. The project has also been registered with the GBCA, which is the Green Buildings Council of Australia, and the sustainability innovations include a solar sail on the north elevation of the Central Workplace building. And lastly, the clients will continue to partner with the City of Yarra and non-for-profit groups insofar as future accommodation, noting the existing free of charge areas provided on site for room to create and the Lighthouse Foundation. Turning to the overall design merit, 2 review sessions with council involvement have been held with the Office of the Victorian Government Architect. And the summary from the second and final report is: the design team are commended for their commitment to addressing key issues raised during the initial session. The cumulative impact of revisions has demonstrably improved public realm amenity, landscaping and heritage outcomes for this strategic site. They go on to say, we consider the scheme demonstrates respectful but inventive development of a significant heritage place and could become an exemplar both for Cremorne and other precinct-scale sites containing heritage elements and facing development challenges. Now, with regard to public interest in the proposal, only 4 submissions were received. 2 of those were heritage related. The other 2 include a supportive submission from Cremorne Properties, which are the large property owner to the south, which is the balance of the Brian and May complex, and a single objection from another developer. With regard to the officer's recommendation, firstly, we thank the officers and particularly Julian Larkins for their collaboration to date, and we are generally supportive of their recommendation. There are parts which we don't support though, and they are the reduction in height of the hotel building at the Church Street frontage adjacent to the intersection with Adelaide Street. There's a recommendation that that building height be reduced by 3 storeys, and in part there's reference to overshadowing of the eastern footpath of Church Street. But we comply with the shadowing controls in Council's adopted UDF. So I'm curious as to why, when we comply with the Council policy, why height's being reduced or being put to you that height should be reduced by that amount. And secondly, the report does reference the UDF and the recommendation about 10-storey building heights along Church Street. However, what needs to be understood is that whilst this building, that particular building, the subject building is 13 storeys versus 10, The 10 stories is based on commercial floor-to-floor heights of circa 4 metres, where the residential hotel has residential floor-to-floor heights, so it is not a full 3 stories. We're talking about a height variation of only 5 metres, excluding plant, and it's important we maintain that 200 rooms to get this international hotel brand to the site. Secondly, there is a suggestion about a reduction in height of the Chestnut Street building, again the corner of Adelaide Street and Chestnut Street, and there's also a requirement for a 3 metre setback from Chestnut Street for the same building. Now, regarding the height, the surrounding areas in the UDF are noted as having a preferred height of 7 stories. Now, this is a large strategic site where additional taller forms can be supported and managed without the off-site impacts. It's also, there's approvals been granted or agreed to by this council for 8 stories in the same precinct. Regarding the setback to Chestnut Street, I've already made reference to the generous public realm outcome here, including a public space, a new publicly accessible open space with direct access from Chestnut Street. Now, that has a role and a function where I'm not sure what the role and the function of a 3 metre additional setback is going to be in the context of the broader site. So in summary, the requested changes therefore are the deletion of conditions A1 and A2. And in summary, councillors, this is a world-class project. I've stood in front of this council for 25 years on a whole range of major projects. They don't come better than this. It's a world-class design team. There's a significant investment in getting the right tenants to the site, and that includes, as I said, an international hotel brand. I look forward to working with the council officers in the delivery of the project, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions for Julian? Catherine? Councillor Stone.
You're probably not going to like this, but this is such a major development which will have such a big impact on Cremorne. I wondered if officers could summarise briefly the outstanding concerns they have about it and how the recommendation will address those, just the key ones, and perhaps referencing some of those that have been referred to by Mr Connor in particular.
So, in reference to the hotel building, the recommendation includes 3 levels to come off, so a 3-level reduction to the 13 stories, which would make it 10 stories. This is for shadow impact as well as visual bulk reasons, and to acknowledge, I think, the character of the area and the character of the decision-making in the area, such as 600 Church, which is a nearby example, but also across the road there's recent permits at 587 and also 609 Church, all of which would be in the 8 to 10 story range. So it's not only shadowing, it's a combination of reducing the shadowing but also being consistent with the site context and acknowledging the sensitive nature of the site. They're key factors.
Sorry, there are 12 pages of additional conditions you've included.
Yeah, so
that's one. Are there a handful of other key concerns?
Yeah, so in regard to the Chestnut Street building, that recommendation is to take a level off. That is to acknowledge that it needs to scale down towards the residential hinterland to the northwest. So as well as that, MGS have provided commentary in regard to shadowing to Chestnut Street, hence why we feel that it does warrant a reduction by 1 level. There's a landscape setback that Mr Connor's described. That would be that's a recommendation in the UDF, and it would also complement the other ground plane, such as Russell Street, by creating a link to that. So we strongly advocate for all of those things among the many other recommendations. The conditions are vast, as you've alluded to. They're some of the key points, though.
Just to follow up, when can we expect, do you think, the Heritage Victoria determination on that?
I
I couldn't tell you. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. The first relates to, and I thank my colleague, Councillor Stone, for bringing this to my attention. The question of specific control overlay and DPOs, could officers sort of explain the difference between the two and the sort of relevance to particularly this project or future projects
Yeah, so I think the key difference between the two is development plan overlays would allow a master plan to be provided that we would hopefully be a part of, and then there'd be planning permits issued for each stage of the development. This mechanism that's currently being used is via the incorporated document, and the whole of the development is just approved via that incorporated document. There's benefits to both. We, on advice from our strategic team, feel that the DPO should be used for these key strategic sites in future, because master planning and particular strategic work that's been done can be better planned for that way.
My second question goes to Adelaide Street, because this seems to be the sort of contested space in this particular project. The question for my mind is the management of traffic to the hotel and services to the hotel. Adelaide Street forms the sort of back of the building. There was a suggestion about a two-way in Adelaide Street to bring traffic in and out of Church Street. If it is only continues as a one-way, how do you envisage the traffic entering into the hotel? By what route?
So this has been, thank you for the question, Councillor Landers, this has been workshopped internally and with the applicant right from the beginning of this process back in April. We were consistent from the very get-go based on the advice of our internal departments, mostly traffic, but also urban design, strategic transport and strategic planning, that one-way was appropriate, and any suggestion that two-way was not supported and never has been. The route that the hotel users may have to use, they might have to go around the block. But I'm a planner, not a traffic engineer, sorry.
So does that mean that you're going to have traffic sort of going through residential areas, or is it sort of confined to sort of commercial areas?
I think the number of vehicle movements wouldn't be great for a hotel to manage. You know, it's not a high number of car spaces, and it's not a high proportion of people that will be driving to it, so I don't envisage it to be a major issue. An inconvenience, yes.
Councillors? All right, I will look for a way forward. Councillor Crossland. Councillor Crossland, you've got a motion that you'd like to put forward?
Yes, I'd like to support the officer recommendations with amendment.
Okay. Councillor Landers, you are supporting that motion in front of us.
Do you want me to give a summary of the amendments?
If you'd like to, yes.
Yeah, so the amendments pertain to the provision of a single-level street, shared zone to Adelaide Street, a contraflow micro-mobility lane along Adelaide Street, at Shamford Corners or the like to buildings B, C and D at perimeter intersections, and 2 metre ground and first floor setback to all building frontages to Adelaide Street, which is effectively a continuity of treatment proposed to building B.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Councillor, I move another amendment, please.
You can propose an amendment.
I did. Did you have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor Landers is a seconder, so you can propose an amendment.
It was in 6.1a to, before the use and development commences, amended plans to the satisfaction of the, it's there, Yarra City Council and the responsible authority.
Okay, so it's that first paragraph, yes.
Self-explanatory.
Do you accept? Thank you. Councillor Landers accepts as well. Councillor Crossland, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, yes. This application represents a significant development that actively seeks to integrate really valuable heritage buildings and contemporary built form. I appreciate the architectural intent and how the proposal opens up towards the internal street. However, particularly for such a significant development like this, it's really important that the proposal has an appropriate street interface response to all street frontages. Cremorne is undergoing significant growth and change, and it's important that when developments occur, that it facilitates enhanced public realm outcomes wherever possible. And many of the streets in Cremorne are narrow and have exceptionally narrow or unviable footpaths, with limited opportunity to reallocate road space to meet preferred mobility or public rail outcomes. And Adelaide Street is an example of this. There is significant opportunity to achieve a greater sense of openness and a significantly improved accessibility outcomes, which will be of benefit to both the subject site and the broader precinct. In response, the application needs further resolve for Adelaide Street, and the amendments will bring the application into greater alignment with Yarra's transport strategy, as well as the broader objectives of the urban design framework to facilitate enhanced public realm outcomes and transport mobility objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Landis.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo those thoughts, and I'd like to congratulate the officers on very detailed and a very robust response to the scheme that is being sought through the Development Facilitation Program within the Department of Transport and Planning. Give me an opportunity to just plug that I'm sure my colleagues all agree that local government is best placed to consider local context and the protection and enhancement of local community in respect of planning applications. 9,700 square metres represents a major piece of land in what is considered to be a major heritage area of Brighton May, and a significant development site close to Swan Street, a railway station, public transport corridor, and the heart of the Cremorne Employment Centre. With this development comes opportunities, and I thank the proposers of the scheme to improve the open space outcomes, walkability, and cycling corridors. In terms of the officer's recommendations, the key features is the moderation of heights of buildings B and D, improved setbacks, and preference to retain Adelaide Street as a one-way with enhanced public realm treatments. The amendment seeks to see Adelaide Street as a single-level shared street, and something that I hope will be encouraged throughout the precinct going forward. I commend the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Let's go to a vote and a division. All those in favour? Councillor Glanatsis, Crossland, Nguyen, Landis, Wade, Stone. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Catherine. Do we need to explain next steps? No. Cool. The next item is 7.10, which is the parking management, compliance and law enforcement contract extension. Councillors, do we have any questions for Stuart Martin? Councillor Landis.
Thank you. Can I just discuss the sensors? Now, I know they were quite controversial from the Bridge Road traders when they were put in, and one of the purposes of the sensors was to monitor occupancy of the spaces in terms of management of variable parking rates. Can you give me some sort of feedback on how effective that has been? And I suppose the second part to the question, in terms of sensors, people who sort of regularly park in some of the streets of Richmond have a habit of sort of making a sort of an exodus at around 4 hours and then sort of coming back after another 4 hours to move their cars. So how effective are sensors in terms of the management of parking spaces?
Through you, Mayor. In-ground sensors perform two functions. One is to record a period longer or overstays in designated restrictions. The other one is obviously the collection of data for things like occupancy rate, length of stay, things like that. It's been very successful in obtaining that data, and we've been able to monitor occupation rates or occupancy rates of some of activity centres and length of stay to actually understand the different trends that might be happening within the streets and different parts within that street, and henceforth we've been able to introduce some variable parking options, say on Bridge Road, things like that. In relation to overstay, the parking sensors register when a vehicle has moved into a parking bay. It doesn't record, and there's no system to record the registration number or anything like that. It's the same as, it's a technology that replaces the marking of tyres. So therefore, if somebody moves their vehicle, leaves that area, comes back to the same area, our ability to enforce is not there. They have left the area and come back within that area.
Second question, I guess, I do notice that Bayside now introduced digital parking permits. I guess my question goes to the technologies in front of us now. Do they assist in the adoption of digital parking permits, or will a new technology be required?
Through you, Mayor. We too have digital parking permits, but on a smaller scale. And we've been looking and doing a lot of work in the attempt to introduce that. At the moment, through the infringement management system, when a vehicle registration is put into the system, it will come up and tell us if it's got a digital permit, which will then inform the officer and they won't issue an infringement or something like that. We're looking at further technology to identify that, because it's efficiency rates, as you would appreciate, of when an officer comes down the street, they will look for stickers in windscreens. If they have to stop and put every registration in, that can be inefficient and slow them down. We're looking at things within services from this organisation, things like licence plate recognition, where we can drive down and we'll actually read the registrations and tell us if the vehicles have a permit or not.
So just on the delegating authority to the CEO to sign the extension, I think Councillor Wade has the same question too. Would there be a problem with not providing that delegation, given things change over time? These are long extensions. Shaking head, good, thank you.
Not at all, there'd be no problem. No, not at all.
Yes, I had a question. I think it's just a typo, but at paragraph 7, it refers to, could you just confirm the figure is 22,500,000? There's just a missing zero in there, I think. But if you could confirm that's the figure, that will answer it.
Through you, Mayor, yes, it's a combination of infringements issued as well as the payment platform from our parking meters.
Sweet, thank you. I also had a question just in relation to a 4-year extension is obviously quite a long time, and it's in the context of us undergoing a parking strategy review. I was just wondering if you could speak to, I guess, what process this report has come through to recommend it being a 4-year extension, and why. I appreciate there's some certain things in the report about, we're locked into certain technologies, etc., but just, can it move with the times? Is 4 years long in a technological space?
Through you, Mayor, the current contract was obviously a 3-year contract with 4x4 extensions as part of the original contract that was signed. There is very few players in this realm and system. Oricon, which the company is known now, used to be previously DCA, is used by our neighbouring councils as well. Port Phillip, Stonington, Burundara, Darebin all use a similar system. I'm confident that they are still changing and improving their technology, and anything that comes from the parking strategy will be able to be addressed within the current systems of this.
Councillor Wade, do you want to move your alt-rec?
I do. So it's just to strike out paragraph C, which is delegate the authority to the CEO to exercise future options to extend the contract subject to the necessary funding being available in Council's adopted budget.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Landis will second. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, so parking is obviously a highly contested space. Mr. Martin has a fortunate job of dealing with enforcement and parking, and it's a credit to you that you do so calmly and well. I've suggested that this gets struck out just because you need a high level of oversight space, technology changing all the time, and what's happening right now, like in those circumstances, we suggest straight back before you move to council. Lots of work to go in parking. It's good to hear that our current contractor is conducting the job ahead of it, and then we've been able to there are lots of ideas that are being put forward as part of this parking strategy review, which is I'm comfortable that this is satisfactory now, and I'm looking forward to having a feel of what all these products
Wade, Councillor Landy.
Yeah, just reiterate those comments. Thank the officers. I also look forward to the developing technologies, if you like, to allow deliver digital permits. I think that will be a fantastic step forward, especially around visitor permits, because I know there's a lot of members of the community who would like to access visitor permits that currently don't, and I think digital permits gives the way forward for that. The Pay and Stay has been the parking app of choice across many municipalities, and therefore provides a great deal of consumer convenience. The sensors were implanted to provide occupancy data and to help manage variable parking rates across our activity centres, and we heard from one contributor earlier today who was looking for some sort of view in terms of his area, and I guess that data helps officers to manage and understand how parking activity is taking place in the streets, and maybe we can look forward to seeing a little bit more of that data available on our quarterly reports. Yeah, it does make your job very easy. So I commend this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Let's go to a vote and a division. All those in favour? Councillor Landys, Crossland, Nguyen, Wade, Stone and Glenatsis. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Stuart Martin. We go to section 8, notice of motion. We have none. Petitions and joint letters. Councillors, do we have any? We have none. Questions without notice. Councillors. Councillor Wade.
Yes, this is referring to my previous point about planning scheme amendments, and I was wondering if, through you, Mayor, if Ms Osman could let us know if there's an update on any of the various planning scheme amendments we have with the Minister, just in light of the fact that we won't get that requested report for 3 months.
Through you, Mayor, no specific comments. We have been having some fruitful conversations with respect to the interim open space amendment, and we're awaiting an outcome from the Minister's office with respect to that. The permanent controls on the open space are looking at reopening the panel hearing, and a directions hearing is scheduled for later this year. That's off the top of my head, so I will qualify that and confirm that with the councillors. There has also been some progress with respect to the controls for Fitzroy Collingwood, but nothing concrete. We are happy to provide the quarterly updates, and as any new information comes around, we will advise all councillors. Thank you.
I might add to that, if I may, Mayor, just to say that Councillor Crossland and I recently met with the Minister for Planning and had an opportunity to highlight our concern and aspiration to have the interim controls for the open space amendment addressed pretty quickly. I've subsequently written to the Minister's advisor and also to the Executive Director of State Planning Services to ask them to follow that up, and haven't had a response.
Okay. Delegates' reports. Councillor Stone, you've got one. Would you like to speak to it? Present it? There's a question.
To Ms Osman, on the current commentary on the increasing size of motor vehicles, particularly mega utes, which seem to be hitting the roads, but cars are getting bigger anyway, and the current consultation by Standards Victoria on the size of car parking spaces, particularly relevant to Yarra with our limited street space and our small apartments. Space being at a premium, vehicles getting larger, it doesn't quite work. Is Yarra planning on putting in a submission to Standards Australia, which I think is considering whether to increase the size of standard car parking sizes?
Through you, Mayor, there's a couple of requests for information from the state. We are putting in a submission on one of those, and I'm just trying to find the title of it to make sure that it's the one that you are referring to. Can I just have a minute just to have a look? Sorry, through you, Mayor, we are making the submission to the car and bicycle parking discussion paper submission, so yes, we are. A lot of that work has been led by councils, a joint project between councils, environmental sustainability team, the urban design team and our traffic team, so we are looking at this in a holistic way, rather than just concentrating on the dimensions of bicycle spaces or car parking spaces. So
I will take on notice, Councillor, if you don't mind, the specifics of whether we intend to make a submission to that specific inquiry. Thank you.
Okay. Delegates' reports.
Yes.
Councillor Stone.
Northern Alliance for Greenhouse Action, speaking of councils working together, I'm Council's delegate on the executive of NAGA, which was formed in 2002 as a network to share information, coordinate emission reduction, adaptation activities and cooperate on research and development. NAGA has kicked lots of goals. All of the 9 northern councils who are part of this collaboration have come an awful long way from the days when Yarra was leading the field, and there are incredible projects underway across the region, enhanced by this collaboration between councils. You can do far more together, can't you, than you do alone. There's a strategic plan that was recently updated that can be read on the NAGA website. A couple of highlights of projects. Offsetting is sometimes a dirty word, but sometimes it's also inevitable. NAGA has commissioned some work on offsetting and what are the best forms of offsetting and what are the sorts of criteria you should use. That's a good report, can be provided if anyone would like to see it. The Business Renewables Buying Group, which is a group of councils in the northern region led by Yarra, very successful in reducing emissions in business, one of the hardest areas to reduce emissions, and of course award-winning at the Cities Power Partnership recent awards. The Women's Environmental Leadership Australia program, NAGA has contributed to that and co-led a leadership program for women which is extremely successful. And the Electric Vehicle Charging for Council Fleets program, which a number of councils have been involved in. The Minister for Energy, Minister D'Ambrosio, is doing a tour of the sites and visited Yarra this week. The Mayor was there and I was there in my current role as the Chair of NAGA to greet her and help her with a very large ute, Mayor. Advocacy is best undertaken by groups, and of course NAGA's advocacy strategy is helping that. We've made many submissions, and having submissions from a group of 8 councils is far more effective than one. In terms of knowledge sharing, the Victorian Greenhouse Alliance conference was a huge success. It was booked out well in advance. It was held at the Convention Centre with CASB, the Council for the Sustainable Built Environment, and was a great knowledge sharing and innovation opportunity. And finally, I'll leave it there. There's a lot in that report. I'll leave it for councillors to read, and anyone would like to read it will be published online. But I really do endorse the work of the 9 councils at Naga and the amount of difference that they are making by working together. And my motion is that council note this delegate's report.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. We will table your report. Congratulations on your election as Chair, Naga. And we will go to general business. Don't think we need... It gets tabled. It's not voted on. Don't think it's a new rule. We need to vote? Okay, let's go. Amanda moves. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Glenassis will second. Amanda, would you like to speak further? Councillor Glenassis, would you like to speak further? Let's go to a vote in a division. Councillor Stone, Wade, Landis, Ewan, Crossland, Glenassis. Thank you, everybody. General business. Do we have any from councillors? Councillor Glenassis, which one would you like to table first?
Little Sam passing.
Okay, go for it.
I suppose, do I read out the motion first? Do I?
Yeah, you can move the motion. And can I have
the council recorded its condolence on the passing of Salvador Quadara, known to many in Yarra's Little Sam, of Little Sam Service Station in Collingwood.
Councillor, I'll just see if there's a seconder. Councillor Landis will second.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Sam, the proprietor of Little Sam's Garage, died last Sunday. He was well into his 80s, and after his last heart attack stopped coming to work probably early this year. The garage is located at the corner of Wellington and Sackville Street in Collingwood. It's an icon of the old Collingwood. It's still a working concern, and his son John is still running it. Sam purchased it well over 50 years ago. There's a video floating around of Beyonce performing a song there. He is one of the kindest persons I have come across, and John follows his example. His sister died early this year. She married into the Piedemonte family and owned the well-known supermarket in Nicholson Street. So they both had a huge contribution to the Collingwood area. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Landis.
And just to endorse those regrets and to send our best wishes to all concerned. And just a reminder that we are all one community here in Yarra.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Let's go to a vote and a division. All those in favour? Councillor Stone, Wade, Landis, Nguyen, Crossland and Glenassis. Thank you. Councillors. Councillor Glenassis, do you have another one to table?
Yes, I do.
Let's see if you've got a seconder.
Let's find it first.
For the shade at Fitzroy swimming pool motion.
Yeah, no, I will find it.
It's on the screen, Councillor.
Oh, yeah, okay. That a report be prepared for the next council meeting to consider possible action to provide shading to the people waiting in the queues at Fitzroy Pool and detailing the number of lifeguards on duty at any one time.
Okay, I'll just see if there's a seconder. Councillor Wade will second. Councillor Glenassis, would you like to speak further to it?
Yes, I do. I'm just going to find my little notes there. I did have them here. Just bear with me. You're going to have a bit of patience this time. It's your last meeting. Okay. I'll take it on this one. That's not it, but how long we're talking. That's fine. No. Okay. Sorry, yeah. Can we go with anyone else that's got it until I find it? Is that all right? No? Yeah. Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, we don't have to speak to it. Just basically, you know, we need some shade for the the patrons that visit the Fitzroy pool.
I need to line up.
Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak to it? No? Okay. Any other speakers? Let's go to a vote and a division. All those in favour, Councillor Glanatsis.
Thank you.
Crossland, Nguyen, Landis, Wade and Stone. Thank you, Councillor Glanatsis, for your motion. Do we have another general business motion? Councillor Stone? Wade. Thank you. Sorry.
Mine is that Council requests a report into the publication of past councillor personal interest returns for this term of Council.
Okay. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Crossland. Councillor Wade, would you like to speak further?
Yes, this comes out of a question from public question time last meeting, just requesting transparency with respect to councillor personal interest returns for the life of the term, which I think was a reasonable request. We're just going through this report process to make sure that we meet all legal technicalities before any kind of disclosure. We might need consent, things like that. So it's just a few hurdles to leap through, but I think it's further to the transparency thrust that we've been on for some time.
Councillor Crossland.
Nothing further to add than to say thank you to Councillor Wade for the preparation of this.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a vote and a division. All those in favour, Councillor Glanatsis, Crossland, Nguyen, Landis, Wade and Stone. Thank you. Do we have any other general business? Okay, no urgent business and no confidential tonight. Declare this meeting closed at 8:27.
This is your last meeting as Mayor, so maybe an opportunity to thank you and job well done and congratulations.
Thank you, councillors. We can reserve speeches for tomorrow night, but thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, councillors and community, all who are watching tonight. Good night.